The Nissan GTR, no matter what variant you think of, they're all loved in a car guy and girl's heart. It's just one of those cars that brings the cool factor, performance and just a general great feeling to everyone who is lucky enough to drive it or even own one. I don't even drive yet and I'm always screaming like a little girl when I see the white R34 parked at the top of my street. I am absolutely desperate to have it. So with all this love comes a backstory, one that spans several generations of this Japanese legend. The first Skyline GTR was released on February 4th, 1969 and was exclusive to a Japanese Nissan dealership network called Nissan Prince Store. This was when Prince was integrated into Nissan's operations in 1966. It was available originally as a 4-door saloon after a public debut at the 1968 Tokyo Motor Show. It was advertised alongside the Nissan R380 race car to showcase the Skyline's racing potential. It was equipped with a 2-litre DOHC S20 inline 6 engine, producing 160 horsepower and 131 pounds-feet of torque. Power was delivered to the rear wheels via a 5-speed manual transmission, and obviously this was the first Skyline GTR to ride on semi-trailing arm strut suspension. It was available as a coupe in March 1971 with the chassis code KPG-C10. Now, a popular name for the PGC and KPG-C10 Skyline GTR was Hakosuka, which is a combination of the Japanese word for box, which is Hako, and the pronounced abbreviation of Skyline, which is Suka. And a total of 1,945 PGC and KPG-C10 Skylines were produced. The KPG-C10 successor, the KPG-110, was released in 1973 after its introduction at the 1972 Tokyo Motor Show. Powered by a 1989cc inline 6 S20 engine, the second generation GTR delivered power to the rear wheels for a 5-speed manual gearbox. Now, this car also had both front and rear disc brakes, and the suspension was a semi-trailing ring arm setup with minor aerodynamic parts added. This edition of the GTR was also known as the Ken Mary Skyline due to a popular advert featuring a young couple called Ken and Mary enjoying the Hokkaido countryside. Unfortunately, the second generation GTR was unsuccessful due to a gasoline crisis hit in the early 1970s, which was drying out any demand for high performance sports cars, which is a goddamn shame. Because of this crisis, a total of 197 cars were built by the end of its short production run. For the next decade, this would be the last GTR. After cancelling the Skyline GTR in 1973, Nissan revived the car again in 1989. At the time, Nissan was competing in Group A racing with the Skyline GTS-R. Nissan wanted to retire the GTS-R in favour for a more competitive vehicle. The R32 was designed to dominate Group A racing. Nissan Koke, Nissan's powertrain engineering and manufacturing facility, originally tested a twin turbocharged 2350cc board and stroke version of the RB20 engine. This setup produced 313 horsepower and used a rear-wheel drive drivetrain. Under Group A regulations, a turbocharged engine must multiply its engine displacement by 1.7, putting the new Skyline in the 4000cc class. The rules also require a use of 10-inch wide tyres. Knowing that they would be required to use that size of tyre, Nissan made the decision to make the car all-wheel drive. They developed a special motorsport orientated all-wheel drive system for this purpose called ATT-ESA-E-TS. Although this assisted with traction, it made the car 100 kilograms heavier. The added weight put the GTR at a disadvantage to the other cars in the 4000cc class. Nissan then made the decision to increase the displacement to 2600cc and put the car in the 4500cc class, with the car's weight near equal to competing cars. The 4500cc class also allowed for 11-inch wide tyres. A new engine block and heads were then developed to better match the increased displacement. The result was a 600 horsepower car. Later, Reineck, or otherwise known, Racing and Rally Engineering Division Incorporated, Nissan Kohi, produced Group A racing engines between 500 and 650 horsepower depending on track conditions. This new 2.6 litre all-wheel drive concept was put into production as the R32 Nissan Skyline GTR. The R32 developed 276 horsepower and 266 pounds-feet of torque, and it had a curb weight of 1,430 kilograms. Nissan officially started its production run in August 1989 and began its Group A campaign in 1990. Due to strict Group A homologation rules, Nissan was required to sell a series of the Skyline GTR, which was more accurately reflected to the car that they use in Group A racing. This edition was called the Nismo, and it was introduced on February the 22nd, 1999, and had a total production run of 560 units as required for the Evolution models regulation. Only 500 of the cars were sold to the public, with Nissan holding on to 60 to turn into race cars. Its purpose was to homologate a number of aerodynamic changes used in Group A racing. Changes include additional ducts in the front bumper to improve airflow to the intercooler, a bumper lip spoiler to direct more air into the engine bay, and an additional boot lip spoiler to provide more downforce. The Nismo was only available in one colour that they call gunmetal grey, which sounds epic. The Skyline GTR N1 model, introduced on July 19th, 1991, was designed for home market N1 racing, with a total of 228 units being produced. The most notable change was in the engine, which was upgraded to the R32 N1 specification. The car was also lightened by the removal of ABS, air conditioning, sound system, rear wiper, trunk/boot carpet, and the use of lightweight headlights. No colour options were available, and all N1 cars were delivered with a thin layer of crystal white paint. The result was a 30 kg weight savings for a curb weight of 1400 kilograms. To celebrate the success of the GTR in both Group N and Group A racing, Nissan introduced the Skyline GTR V-Spec, aka the Victory specification, on February 3rd, 1993. The V-Spec added Brembo brakes and a returned ATT ESA E-TS system to the Nismo and N1 packages, as well as 17-inch BBS wheels with 225-inch wide tyres. Finally, on February 14th, 1994, the Skyline GTR V-Spec 2 was released, with the only change being 245-inch tyres. In addition, both the V-Spec and V-Spec 2 had a curb weight of 1480 kilograms, weighing 50 kg more than the standard GTR. Then came the R33. It was developed in 1995 as a direct successor to the epic R32. The engine in the R33 was nearly identical to the R32. It used the same turbochargers and the same specification for the manual gearbox, although the synchros were made to be stronger. The engine corrected the R32's weak oil pump drive collar, which tended to fail in higher power applications, so they fitted a wider collar. The base model R33 GTR weighs 1,540 kilograms, and the R33 launched in 1995 with a base model GTR and the V-Spec model. So the engine corrected the R32's weak oil pump drive collar, which tended to fail in higher power applications, with a wider collar. The base model R33 GTR weighs 1,540 kilograms, and they launched it in January 1995 with the base model GTR and the V-Spec model. The V-Spec model weighed in at 10 kilograms heavier and had sportier suspension, resulting in a lower ground clearance. The V-Spec also featured the newer ATT ESA E-TS Pro all-wheel drive system, which included an active limited slip differential. The V-Spec model also included a 4-wheel independent channel anti-lock braking system. At the same time as the release of the R33 GTR and GTR V-Spec, Nissan released the R33 GTR V-Spec N1 model. Changes in the N1 are similar to those in the R32 N1. The car was made lighter by removing all the stuff you don't need for performance to be at its best. Then sadly, the R33 ended production on November 9th, 1998, and obviously many petrolheads were certainly depressed that day, but all we know is the death of the R33 led up to something much more legendary and special. The R34 GTR and GTR V-Spec models were released in January 1999. The R34 GTR was also made to be shorter from front to rear, and the front overhang was reduced. The valve covers were also painted glossy red as opposed to black from the previous models. A new feature on the R34 was a 5.8 inch LCD multi-function display on the centre of the dashboard. This shows 7 different live readings of engine and vehicle statistics, such as turbocharger pressure, oil and water temperature, among others. The GTR V-Spec model added 2 extra features to the display: intake and exhaust gas temperatures. Nismo multifunction displays could be bought at extra cost as well. They included a lap timer, G-force meter, and increase in boost pressure measurement. Apart from the V-Spec models, Nissan went on to create the last model ever of the GTR R34. This was the GTR R34 V-Spec 2 NUR, or in other words, the Nürburgring edition. Apart from having a more boosted and more powerful version of the normal GTR R34's engine, the NUR also had different colour of stitching on interior trim, as well as a speedometer reaching 186 miles an hour, and also gold valve covers instead of red. Now, due to the Japanese car industry norms at the time, the car was advertised as having a 276 horsepower engine, but it actually had over 330 when it left the factory. Now, I just want to say, that is pretty damn cheeky of you, Nissan, pretty damn cheeky, but for that, we petrolheads love you. But apart from the facts and figures and all the past history that the GTR has, the most iconic thing that all car people around the world relate with the R34 and Skylines overall is Paul Walker's modified version from Too Fast, Too Furious. I have not met one car guy or one car girl that doesn't like that car, and that just shows you how much love the R34 and previous Skylines have gained over the years, and it always will be in our petrol-filled hearts forever, along with the other GTR models from the past, present, and the future.